Hey everybody, if you love combat sports such as MMA, Kyokushin, boxing, BJJ, etc., make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, and comment button on the Drewsperience channel, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. Thank you to the supporters of Martial Way Blog, One Kyokushin, KRT Tips and Tricks, and Real Talk that the Martial Way hosts with Shian Terry Burkett. These three pages, I work together with them in order to grow Kyokushin Karate. So no matter the association or level you are in Kyokushin, if you have content to share to grow Kyokushin Karate, make sure to like and message us, and we'll do what we can to help your page or pages grow. Also, thank you to the supporter, Moments Management. If you're an up-and-coming fighter, especially in my Kyokushin crowd, if you're looking to go professional, finding a good manager is very hard. Luckily, there's Moments Management, where Nima Safapur and his team will make sure you understand what you're getting into with pro fighting and that you are educated for before, during, and after, so you leave healthy and wealthy. Moments Management, where quality and care come first. And also, if you're in Quebec, you want to take up martial arts and you want to get into Kyokushin, I always recommend Kyokushin Boucherville with Shian-Pierre Catafort and his amazing team of other senseis and Shian, such as Sensei Joan Fournier, amongst others, and Aikyo Nakamura. If you're looking to learn new habits, discover a tradition with martial arts, make sure to check them out. Aikyo Nakamura. If you're looking to take your health into your hands and develop good habits and discover a vast new community and make new friendships, they are the ones to look forward to. And with that, we'll get to our guest. Hey everybody, this is the Drewsperience, the show that is 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. Today's guest has been a long time in the running. I have to really thank Sensei Nicholas Pettis for recommending him after I hosted Nick. Nicholas said, I think you should get this guy on your show. This guy is so accomplished. I have to read his accolades here. I had to write the list out. His accomplishments include, let's first start with boxing. He is the WBO Foundation heavyweight champ, the WBO Asia Pacific heavyweight champ. And when it comes to kickboxing, he's the ISCA World Heavyweight Champ, K1 2003 Australian Champ, Kyokushin. Oh boy, yes, he does have a Kyokushin background. And his accomplishments, he is the South Pacific champion from 1999 in the open weight tournament, the 1999 New Zealand open weight Kyokushin champ. He's also competed in Bellator MMA, so he's a pro fighter as well. He is the one, the only Peter the Chief Graham. Welcome to the Drewsperience, Peter.
Hey, Drew. How you doing, man?
Hope you liked the intro.
Yeah, it was a great intro. You got most of it right, too, so that's pretty good. I got to I can update you. I don't know when that was. Sorry, I'm just going to set this up so it sits a little better.
Yeah, take your time, buddy.
So a bit disorganized because we just had a whole bunch of floods in my house, and I just got into the gym, so things were a bit crazy. So I'm also a WPF boxing heavyweight pro world champ. Was an undefeated amateur novice kickboxing world champ. I made it to the Bellator finals. Actually, I lost on points to Czech Congo, which of course is the UFC heavyweight champ. So, well, and also a Thai boxing world champ as a pro. So 137 pro fights. So over 17 years. And I guess on average, that works out to be about one every 2 months for 17 years. So in other words, when I tell people, I say, hey, you know what? Fighters got to fight, and, they're like the Kyokushin way of life, train, fight, eat, sleep, train, fight. That's what I did for a long, long time.
Awesome. Yeah. And now you're living the fruits of your labor, doing what you love, owning a gym, and proud owner of a very beautiful English bulldog that we met before recording. Just enjoying her little nap there. So Peter, I want to ask you, because, you've done so much and your story is pretty crazy based on what I've looked up. And, when I've spoken to others about it, like I say, it's out of a movie. But let's start with, how did you discover martial arts and why Kyokushin at first?
How I discovered martial arts is I guess it was, I watched too many martial arts movies as a kid, right? and watch, the Karate Kid, and, like every single one of them. And, there was that thing in my head that said, this is awesome. I always liked it. I actually thought I wanted to do the martial art that had the slightly cooler flag. You got to remember, I was a kid and I was a bit silly. So I thought the Korean flag looked a bit better than the Japanese flag because it had the extra little things on, a bit more colorful than the red sun on the white background. But anyway, I used to live in a refuge, and I used to walk. I was kind of slightly wayward, to say the least. I was about 17, almost 18, and I used to walk past this Kyokushin dojo, almost every day because I was going to a bottle shop, because I used to get drunk with my friends and hang out. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm almost 18, because I went to so many different schools. I went to about 17 different schools, and I just moved all the time because I was in, what they call young homeless accommodation. And I was a street kid. I said, man, I got to do something with my life. And there was this dojo, and I just walked in, and I walked up to the guy behind the front counter. I said, hey, man, I want to become a karate champ. What do I got to do? Yeah, I know. I was that crazy kid. Anyway, and the guy, his name was Giovanni. And he told me after, he said he went back behind the counter. He said, man, this big crazy kid walked in, and he said, man, he's crazy as hell. And he goes, oh, what happened? He said, yeah, he said, what's, how does he become a karate champ? Anyway, he told me years later, he said, Pete, but you had the last laugh, because he told me, he said, come back at 6 o'clock. And I did that, and I never stopped. I just remember that first time I turned up in a pair of basketball shorts and a singlet. I started training, and I'm, shit, we're doing, reverse punches, and I'm like trying so hard, and I was like, fuck. And my sensei said, who said that? I said, oh, yeah, sorry, mate. He goes, yeah, sorry, mate. Boss. I said, yeah, yes, no, boss. He goes, don't you ever swear in my class again. I'm like, yeah, no worries. He said, not, yeah, no worries. He says, boss. So, all right. He goes, not all right, boss. Anyway, so that was kind of my first day. It's kind of crazy.
That's wild. Now, and so you just walk in there, and you said you're 17, 18. When did you start to recognize your talents in Kyokushin, that you could really go far with this?
You know what? I wasn't really a confident kid. I had, what's the word, bravado. I like to talk, but really I wasn't confident. I did it because I thought, that was all I had. I thought, if I don't do one thing, I'm not going to be good at anything. I didn't think I was going to be academically good at anything. So I just said, look, just do one thing and just stick to it. So that feeling of, I'm good, or I'm better than other people, never really happened. Even when I was winning world titles and I was a pro, and when I signed to K1, I felt happy. I knew I wasn't terrible at it, but I know I was almost too scared to think, oh, hey, I'm good. It's almost like my lack of self-confidence pushed me to be a better person. Because, it's like, one part of me was like, you know what, Pete, you're not a natural athlete. Like, I used to smoke cigarettes when I was a kid, and I went, you know what, you already probably messed up your health anyway. I said, you can't afford to do anything wrong, And I just said, well, if these guys train every day and they're good, I'm going to have to train at least twice as much to be as good as them. And if I want to be better than them, I've got to do it 3 times as much. And to say that I'd never felt good doing anything else almost is almost an understatement. I just never did anything else. I just never started anything, because I just started and then I'd have to move again. So when I started doing Kyokushin, it was like the first time in my life that I'd lived in a kind of permanent place, as ever since I was a little kid, when I still lived in my family's home. And I just said, that's it, man. You got to do this, and you got to give it 150%. And I just said, I got to do it more than everyone else. And so I just put my foot down 100%. Within 2 years, I'd moved to Japan to become an uchideshi.
Whoa, that's crazy. So you're coming. So because of your so basically Do you feel that because of all the moving you did, because of the lifestyle of the childhood you had, do you feel Kyokushin gave you some form of stability with the network that you established in your school?
Absolutely. My first sensei, his name was Graham Porter. He was what I thought a man should be. You know, he was tough. He was respectful. You know, he owned a business. He had a beautiful family and beautiful wife. And he just seemed to be successful and confident in everything. I went, I want that. I want what he wants. And, you know, he showed me through his actions that discipline will equal success. And I just went, I'm going to be like this guy. And I just kept at it. I just went, you know, this is the way to become successful. And discipline in Kyokushin started to reflect slowly onto my personal life. And it really just became who I am. You know, just discipline, you know, short, medium, long-term goal striving, you know, just the way that, you know, karate is set up, you know, with, you know, either tips, you know, and then your grade, and then your tip, and then a grade, and, you know, and you have the short-term goal of, you know, winning a small tournament or getting a tip, you know, a medium-term goal of getting to your next colored belt, and a long-term, you know, goal of course, you know, becoming a black belt, you know, and that, you know, those fundamentals work for everything, right? Doesn't matter whether it's a podcast or it's getting a black belt in karate or getting a university degree or having a positive relationship with somebody. At the time, obviously, I didn't realize that. I was just a kind of young, angry kid, and I just wanted to punch fuck out of people. And I thought Kyokushin was a great way to do it. Mind you, though, for the first, you know, the first couple of years, it was the other way around. But it really kind of was the absolute right thing for me.
That's really amazing. I really love how you said it started to transcend outside of the dojo. And I can definitely agree with that. It's amazing how when you get, it's to quote Raja Ghul from Batman Begins, if you devote yourself to something, you become something else entirely.
Yeah. It's like the saying, you know, what is it? The master of all trades is better than one. But what a lot of people don't know is that the rest of that saying says, but it's better than being, but it's better to be the master of all trades is better than none, but the master of one is better again. I messed it up, but it's basically saying if you stick to it, you know, you can achieve it.
Very, very true.
But then it transcends. So I really messed that up.
Don't worry.
Is that, you know, like start off with one, but then that discipline in one area will creep into others, basically.
Very, very true. So you recognize your talent, you start going, you become an uchideshi. And what was it? What was that? What did moving away from Australia do for you as you were a young adult? How did it change you with the Kyokushin you were learning in Japan versus Australia from your sensei, Graham Porter?
So the karate that Sensei Graham Porter was teaching me was very, very similar. His understanding of the way to teach Kyokushin was very similar to that of what I got when I was an uchideshi. But the biggest difference is in Japan, it wasn't something you did, it was something you became. People started karate classes and didn't stop. It was amazing. Like everyone, they were there. Like there were guys coming in their lunch break, you know, Japanese workmen, and you could tell they smoked. They almost looked like they were going to die, these white belts. But they just kept turning up and they kept getting their ass kicked. But I realized that it wasn't, and you know, they'd signed on for a way of life as opposed to an extracurricular activity that, say, you know, you and I might do in Australia or Canada or the United States or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So uchideshi is like a real chance for the Japanese to change their life and to devote themselves to something entirely new.
Yeah, I was just talking about regular students, but definitely, Deshi's definitely 100% was saying we're in. It was almost like, you know, a trade apprenticeship, but you go and live in the you know, the granny flat in the back of the guy who's teaching you how to be a carpenter's house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm going to turn the aircon on. If it's too loud, you tell me, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I will do.
It's so humid here at the moment. It's like almost 100% humidity. And it's been raining flat stick for a week.
Oh, boy.
It's disgusting.
Well, in Canada, it's pretty cold. We're getting over winter, but we're getting hit with winter storms every week. So it's kind of like Alaska here. So
we don't have Canada cold weather in Australia.
You're lucky. You have the beaches. We don't. We don't have that luxury. We have winter and summer and maybe fall if it doesn't snow in fall.
Yeah. It's pretty. Sydney's a pretty nice city to live in. It's pretty good.
It's pretty. Speaking of Australia, though, I've asked Sensei Patrick Pinto, shout out to Pat Pinto of Kyokushin Shuffle, and I want to get your take on this. Australasia is a kickboxing powerhouse, whereas you have Russia, that's the Russia and America are the wrestling powerhouses. What is it that you think makes Australasia such a striking martial arts powerhouse?
I think maybe is that we have Polynesians, you know, like, you know, Tonga, Samoa, Rarotonga, you know, the Maoris, and we have Australian Aboriginals and Papua New Guineans. They're just strong, tough people, man, and they're just good strikers. And I guess, you know, boxing has always been something in Australia, of course. You know, the first black man to ever win a heavyweight world title was actually in Sydney, Australia, in Rose Bay. So we've always had an affinity with striking. So, you know, wrestling has never been really big. Even judo, although it's kind of not unpopular, it hasn't had, you know, the kind of weight that, say, wrestling has in the United States and America. So I guess that could be the reason. I'm not really sure. I mean, we've had some really good promoters, and I guess we've had some good champs. We had Stanley Man Longanides, who was a kickboxing world champ, and he, you know, really put us on the map for kickboxing. Then you had guys from New Zealand, and then of course it blew up massively when Mark Hunt won K1, and then just became a wrecking machine through the MMA scene as well. You know, and then of course, you know, before that was, you know, Ray Sefo, and everyone loved Ray Sefo because he's so charismatic. And so I don't know, maybe it's just that we've, you know, a few guys have really made it popular.
Interesting. There's also now, because now like there's like the forefathers, and now today it's in MMA, the Israel Adesanyas, the Robert Whitakers. There's quite a few other, like, Australia's really become a hot spot, not just for rugby, but for combat sports.
Well, yeah, well, you know, rugby league and rugby union and Australian rules football, you know, really popular, you know, contact sports, like really popular. And you know, I think that, you know, a lot of the you know, superstars in combat, in football sports, have the odd boxing fight and things like that. So that's popularized it as well. I don't know. I think I'm taking a guess here.
It's okay. Hey man, any answer is good. You live there. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it as an outsider, but you know your territory best. So that's what I had to ask. You go to Japan now. So yes, you're in Japan. You're doing Uchideshi. And now I wanted to ask you, what was that experience like in terms of what was going on in the Kyokushin scene back then?
So it was just after Sosai Masayana passed away. Now, unbeknownst to me, there was a lot of inner conflict in the upper levels. I didn't know shit. I was a white kid from Sydney. But I remember one night getting woken up in the dojo, because there's the head dojo, but we actually lived in like some dormitories around, you know, the back of the block. And they wake us up in the middle of the night and say, get up, get up, get up. And we all got up, and they running into the head dojo in Ikebukuro and holding these weapons, you know, like clubs and nunchucks and, you know, batons. They're like, which one do you want? I'm like, for what? He said, don't let anyone in the dojo. I'm like, dude, I'm from Sydney. I didn't sign up for gang warfare. Like, so what do you mean? He said, anyone tries to come into the dojo to take the building, you've got to stop them. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you serious? And this was all in, broken English from one of the Japanese uchideshis. And I'm like, they're going, no way. So we're like, where they put their shoes at the front of the dojo, we're just kind of hanging out there at the middle of the night. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. So all that was happening, and there was a lot of inner conflict, between the different factions. And the training itself was brutal. It was, we trained 2 to 3 times a day. And, I was just there as something to get kicked and punched. It's like, you're not Japanese, you're not a real uchideshi, you're going home. It was brutal. But in saying that, there's also some type of camaraderie. If you do it, you know what you've done. Like maybe outside of Kyokushin, or maybe even outside of the people who haven't done the uchideshi program, don't really understand. But the people who've definitely done it at all, any of it, I understand. So you've done it, you've been there, you lasted more than a week. Yeah, I get it, man. You're with us, because it's that hard. But you do the program, and it changes you positively. It either breaks you or makes you, and it certainly made me. I came out of that, then I started to get good.
That's amazing. And during that time, so you came in when Sosai had just died, and where do you and Sensei Nicholas Pettis cross paths during this period?
Okay, so when I first went there, he was away doing something, so he came back after about 2 weeks. But he was the head instructor at Hombu, like the headquarters, and he's the only non-Japanese guy to ever hold that position. And if the Japanese were tough, maybe Nick was even tougher. And he was just non-stop. He was such an incredible athlete, and an incredible fighter. But his training work ethic was second to none. So we'd find these kind of combat runs through Yoyogi Park in the middle of Tokyo. We'd be running all through the bushes, and then we'd be doing sparring. And then he really put a huge amount of effort into being the best coach he could be. And he was so focused, and he really cared about us. Like at that time I was broke as shit. So he lent me one of his scooters. He's helping me get some sponsors so I could get some some kind of at least a kind of cool tracksuit or something, so I didn't look like I was homeless. It's probably so he didn't look like all his friends were homeless. But it was cool, man. It was really, really hard, but I had an awesome time. It was the ultimate fighter's life, right? You got no money, but you're having lots of fun.
It's the experience. It's the experience that makes you rich, not the money.
Yeah, you work so hard, for that goal of, having some money or having a cool car. For me anyway, by the time it came, I was like, yeah, it was almost like, oh, it's about time anyway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't as good. Yeah, and when I look back, it was all the we went to so many different places, like so many crazy destinations, and had so many fun times. Win, lose or draw, it was awesome. I mean, most of the time, most of us won.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the most important.
Yeah, but that attitude, after I came back to Japan the second or third time, and eventually moving there, it was just I guess it's like the World Surf Tour, right? You just want to stay on it. What do professional golfers and surfers do on their day off? They play golf and go surfing. If you're a fighter,
excuse me, sorry about that.
That's what we did. I mean, we didn't want to take a day off doing something else. We, all you just talked about was, man, when's the next fight? When's the next fight? We trained for a fight. When K1 kind of eased up in 2008, I was like, well, we got to find something else. It's like, let's go fight MMA. Like I was 30.
Whoa, you were ready to go too. So that's my next question. So you basically, you're going into K1 and then you're going to MMA, but let's take it to K1. This is the golden era. So there's some big names still. You got Sam Greco, you have Globe Feitosa, you have Alistair Overeem, Remy Boyansky. But in March of 2006, you fight this up and comer, bit of a upstart, and a bit of a, you know what? Not a bit of. He is an SOB. He's pretty cocky. Goes by the name of Badr Hari. What went on in your head when you saw that the bad boy in kickboxing for the first time?
You know what, we saw, like I saw him, and it kind of came onto my radar just a little bit before that. I think just after he knocked out Stefan Lecker. It was Stefan Lecker, right, with the backy. And they're like, oh yeah, you're talented. But, you know, that kind of seemed to happen a lot in K1. You know, someone would materialize and go, wow, and they'd burn out quickly because you get a bunch of cash or a bunch of fame. And of course, what happens when you get a bunch of cash and a bunch of fame and you didn't have much of that before is, you know, a lot of guys just destroy themselves, or they can't keep up the pace. That's it. So they're there for a bit, but they can't stick around because whatever was motivating them dissipates. So, you know, I knew who Badr Hari was, obviously, and I thought he was pretty cool, and I thought he was getting a lot of attention because, you know, he had the ability. And when I met him, he was such an arrogant fuck. I'm like, fuck you. Anyway, me and my best mate, a guy called Tony Dow, said we reviewed all his press conferences. And I knew he was going to try to, you know, be a smart ass in the press conference. And I watched him and I said, okay, man, let's practice comebacks to this. I said, this guy's going to be so easy to stir up. It's not even funny. I'm not going to have to do anything. So he started waffling on, and I knew he was going to bring up the thing about how old I was. And I went, please do it. He goes, how old are you, man? I'm like, I'm 30. He goes, you know, he's like saying, you know, you're old. Everyone else is old. And I thought, man, this is great. So I really wanted to, you know, to get him off his game, to make him think about, you know, anything other than the fight. And it worked a T. And the thing about him as well, his particular style, the way he fights, is he has a little bit of Thai boxing because he leans back, you know, like a Thai boxer does. And he has some good, you know, Dutch style kickboxers. So they have a lot of the Kyokushin low kicks, but they also have good boxing. But one of the things that works really well for me is the way that I set up a roll kick. It doesn't actually work on everyone, but there's certain people who do certain things. And when you set it up, it works tremendously. But of course, Badr Hari is, you know, an exceptional athlete. I mean, that's where the exceptions finish, though. I mean, he's just mean and rude to everyone. I'm like, man, what's the problem with you, man? You know, everyone is trying to help you, and you're just acting like an asshole. I actually thought it was just him trying to make a name for himself, but he generally thought he was hard done by. I'm like, dude, man, every single person who makes the top 32, the top 36, you know, everyone, you know, more, you know, they've all got a story. You know, either everyone was, you know, they were, you know, treated poorly because they were not like everyone else they grew up with, or they were broke, or they had dyslexia, or they had, you know, horrible parents or no parents. Like everyone's got a story, dude. It's like, you know, and that's why they're brutal. You know, there's that weird thing that happens that makes champion fighters, right? Instead of becoming violent and destroying their lives because they have that one little kind of element that makes them disciplined, and it turns them into phenomenal combat sports athletes. You know, you just have to hear about what Mark Hunt's happening in his life. You know, have you read Mark Hunt's book?
I have not read it, but I have looked it up, and the way he became a pro fighter is straight out of a novel, or well, they made of his autobiography, but yeah, it's out of a movie. He was like a bouncer, and then like they found him, and they're like, wow, this guy can throw hands, and then he was put in K1 after, and Pride.
Yeah, it's incredible. His story is epic. But if you ever meet Mark Hunt, he lives just outside of Sydney. He's really nice. He's really cool. He hasn't changed one iota, and he's a worldwide superstar, right? Mm-hmm. But Badahari, if you're not famous or someone who's going to do something for him, he treats them poorly, and that's not cool. You know, it's like, don't be a dick just because it can't help you. And even people who've helped him, you know, you hear these crazy stories of him beating them up and losing the plot. It's like, man, you got some anger issues that you need to really work out.
He slapped a hotel clerk. Did you ever see the video where like he just comes in from, the guy doesn't even know who Bader is, and Bader just comes up and just starts slapping the hotel. Like that's the kind of guy he is. Like, it's like, I don't know how you can be a fan of that guy. It's he doesn't conduct himself properly.
No, he's a dick. Anyway, so yeah. I knew what he was going to do. I'd watched his fights, and he had a chink in his armor, and I thought, okay, I was in great condition, and he was in great condition, and I thought, okay, there's only one real way to beat this guy. And, you know, as I like to say, I had to bring karate to the party. I had to bring something different. You know, if I fought just like a Thai boxer or just like a boxer who kicked, it wouldn't work. And sure enough, he fell for the way that I set it up. If you watch the first fight slowly, you'll see what I do. If you watch in the first round, I try to set it up, and he just got out of the way. So what I do is I throw a slow right hand, and instead of slipping into it, he will slip back, and that's when you can hit him. And if they slip into it, it works as well. But slipping back works better. Mm-hmm. But in the last round, he was just a little bit more tired. And I set it up. I thought I got to throw in that last kind of couple of seconds. And he walked into it. You know, the rest is history. You know, but what really annoyed me is that the way the next fight we had a rematch in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And for the whole fight, he just held on. And if you watch that fight, it's really frustrating to me. You're trying to set things up. And normally in K1, if you hold on more than once, they'll take a point off and everything. But like, you know, he really got to coast in that fight. And then we had a third match in Dubai. And what really pissed me off about that was, is that I had my first match. It was a really tough match. I was exhausted. And he had a really super easy match. Knocked the guy out in the first round. So I think it was Stefan Leko, but Stefan Leko was in no shape to fight. Let me tell you, he was messed up a whole bunch of days before that fight. And I was like, man, it was crazy. Anyway, and then, so Badahari had this big break from the beginning of the show to the end. And me only had a 10-minute break. So I was exhausted. I went out the back and said, okay. They're like, hey, you're up. And I said, this is fucked. You know, they're setting me up so he can knock me out. Don't get me wrong. This is something that all fighters have to deal with. But it kind of bugs me. It's like, you know what? In a perfect setup where things are, you know, set up evenly, then it becomes a much, you know, a better fight for everyone. You know, like if it's a one-off super fight, him and me, we both have the same set of conditions and things aren't leaning to one way or the other, like, you know, like short notice, or they bring them over in first class, you get brought over in economy, you know, they get, you know, lots of time to know the fight's happening, you get a shorter time, you know, all these different things that can make it easier or harder for a fighter mentally, because that's such an important part. You know, if you're mentally together on the fight, you know, it just makes it a lot easier. So, I mean, that was frustrating. But in saying that, it is what it is. And, you know, but I feel that, you know, when you look at what's happened in the past, you know, it's easier to kind of say, well, that's probably going to keep going on. He just seems like he's just going to really mess his life up and wind up in jail for a long time.
I call him the Jon Jones of kickboxing. I'm a fan of Jon Jones in MMA, but the thing is, I just think Bader never really had like that mentor that to like sit him down. Like, you know, you had Graham Porter to say, hey, get some discipline, give you some structure and some structure. Those people with that level of energy, that high energy, as I like to say, they need structure, like to channel it in other ways other than just fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And they need someone who they really respect to show them that. You know, I also had Nicholas Pettis. Nicholas Pettis was massively influenced on my life all through K1 and stuff. So, and I wanted to be a better person, not just a better fighter. I was fighting to improve my life, not just my bank balance.
It's very smart, man. It's all about who you surround yourself with. So you move on from, so you're in K1, you're doing K1 and you fight some of the who's who like Bader. You even fought Zavi Baramji, if I said that right, one of the late Andy Hoog's students. And you also managed to probably see the who's who like with Overeem, Feitosa. Was there one fighter in K1 that really stood out to you that you're like, wow, this guy has it all. He has all the tools to become one of the kickboxing's elite for their Mount Rushmore?
Alexander Izhnikov. He was one of those guys. I think he's probably the best guy never to win K1. Of course, there's Mark Hunt as well. Mark Hunt was dangerous in the way that if you pause for a second and he hit you, it's thanks for coming. Now, I fought Mark twice. The first time that's happened, I beat him for 2.95 rounds out of 3, and then I stopped for a second, hit me with the right cross, boom. Ooh. Hit me with the uppercut, boom. Hit me with a third uppercut, put me on my ass, I lost the fight. But then, 3 months later, I fought again in New Zealand and beat him. But Izhnikov, probably not say, you probably got a better idea of how to say his last name better. Nick's always saying, Pete, that's not how you say it, man. I'm like, look, no disrespect. But he was, he was just such a talented Thai fighter. He was so complicated. He had the height. So he was about 6'6". What's that? Like 2 meters 10 or something. Good weight, about 115 kilos or something. And he was beating everyone. And I actually think that out of all my fights that I ever had, I'd probably say he was probably not the most famous win. Badahari is the most famous win. But if you ask me what I think is my personal best performance, I actually think beating Izhnikov was my personal most technical win I ever had. When we got asked to fight him, I was looking with my coach and Alex Tui. And I started watching, tape of his. And I'm like, I can't beat this guy. He's doing everything right. He's a bit taller than me. He's fit. He's strong. He knees well. He boxes well. He kicks awesome. He's got great offense and great defense. And Alex too, he's always like, yeah, you'll be okay. He's really, really quiet guy. I'm like, that's it. That's all the information I'm getting. He's like, we'll figure out a way. And, we're training away. And after about 2 weeks of watching tapes and looking, I'm like, Alex, I just don't know if I can beat him. Not because I didn't have, the willpower to fight. Because I've never said no to any fight ever. Okay, if someone want to fight me, I want to fight. I like fighting. But then we found it. The only thing that he did wrong is because he was such a good striker, no one pushed him going forward. Everyone kind of sat back and, checked and counter fought him and stuff like that. And that was just playing into him. But if you went up to him, he just got, and then held on, especially because it wasn't Muay Thai. It kind of threw him. He didn't really like it. So, and that's what we did. It was terrifying. We went to an extension, and then I remember in the last round, I had made a fundamental mistake. I went in, and instead of grappling and holding tight, I kind of rested here and kind of looked to see what he was doing. And boom, kneed me in the nose, cut me across the top of the nose. Didn't knock me out, but I thought, man, that's about as close as that as I want to get.
Wow, wild. Now let's move on from K1. Now, eventually you get into MMA, and you fought in Bellator, and you became a runner-up in season 9 heavyweights. And you said you fought Czech Congo, who is one of MMA's in the early days of the UFC, one of the best heavyweights, and still in Bellator today. You also fought their first heavyweight champ, Vitaly Minkov. What made you decide to switch from kickboxing and karate to MMA? And how did you get into Bellator? Why also Bellator say versus ONE FC or UFC? Like when there was those promotions.
So what happens is, what happened to Pride kind of happened to K1 as well. There was a whole lot of turmoil. Mr. Ishii went to jail on tax fraud or something. So K1 kind of imploded.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just no fights. We were going from fighting all over all the time, all over the world to nothing. I'm like, damn, I got to do something else. So I said, well, we had Sengoku, which was the new Pride, in Japan. I said, I'll fight MMA. So I started training MMA, and I thought, man, I got to go from the top. So we got to fight. What's his name? His name escapes me right now, of course, while we're recording. So I had my first MMA fight, and I lost. And I lost 5 out of my first 6 MMA fights. But I took on some of the best grapplers in the world. And then I moved back to Australia, and things were kind of going from bad to worse. I wasn't winning. And then I started training with Larry Papadopoulos, who's he was a number 1 in the world for shoot boxing, and he was a 3rd dan in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Nova Una, and he was one of the top wrestling guys in Australia and stuff. So I started training with him, and kept training, kept fighting, and then I got an offer to fight Izhnikov. Oh no, sorry, not Izhnikov. Emelianenko, but Alexander Emelianenko, Thor's brother. The big kind of scary one with the big scary tattoo on his back. And he's a big guy. Like when you see him, you go, he's not giving out, let's be friend vibes. Like Badahari comes across a bit like crazy, but Sasha Emelianenko, which I call him as well, just comes across as don't fuck with this person, because he will beat you up or make you disappear, especially when you're in Russia, right?
Yeah. So speaking, yeah.
And I fight him in Russia, in the far east of Russia.
Mm.
And it is like, the Gulag is like 10 kilometers up the road, minus 20 degrees Celsius, just all mobbed out. Awesome place, man. I loved it. And I love Russia. It was such a fun place. But a place that people don't pull punches. It's not a soft place. Anyway, so we fight in this ice hockey arena that they converted to a fight arena. And I come out to this fight, and they're like, still drinking whatever they're drinking and talking to friends, and my music's coming on. I'm walking out. Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, there's that Aussie guy who's going to get thrown to the lions. And when he walks out, the crowd erupts. It's like freaking deafening. Wow, what a guy. That guy can hit hard. His boxing is really good. So we're fighting in Draka, which is a big Russian MMA federation for MMA, of course. And this guy can hit hard. And like he hit me so hard that I lost my taste and my smell for 2 weeks afterwards. So I couldn't smell or taste anything for 2 weeks. I came back, thank God. But anyway, I don't know if he didn't prepare properly, but he just wasn't really fit. I smashed his legs. And long story short, I beat him. And they were just shell-shocked. It was like, damn. But that was it. That was the catalyst. I had to beat someone. People were like, why are you taking this fight? It's so dangerous. I said, well, if I don't beat someone good, no one's going to watch me. And as a prize fighter, if you don't get anyone to watch you, no one cares. But going back to Bellator, I was offered to fight in UFC a couple of times, but the money was just so bad. I'm like, I can't afford to live if I take that fight. And then they were kind of talking about, changing the deal with the sponsorship. I said, I can't fight for $4,000. All I do is fight. I didn't have another job, and I fought all the time. So I thought, if I'm locked in and I can only fight once or twice a year for $4,000, Like, I just don't have that money. They're like, oh, but if you win the title, I'm like, yeah, but I can make exponentially amount of more money fighting for these other companies. And at that time, Bellator was coming up and they were offering all these things. And I actually had some good US sponsors. You know, sponsorship in the US really works well. So I thought, okay, we'll try that. But even then, the amount of money that they offered me, even for the title fight, was shit. So I just went back to fighting and, fighting in Russia and China and places like that, which the money was way better. And I guess UFC just wasn't offering heavyweights, or they weren't really interested in heavyweights. So I never got any information, or, they never contacted me, anything about that. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. And then also because there wasn't as many MMA fights, I started, I kind of started boxing again because I wanted to have more fights. It was, the gap in between the amount of fights I had was short. So started boxing again and, worked my way up to a WBF pro world title, which was fun too.
That's awesome. And when you fought in Bellator, you fought, as you said, you fought Czech Congo. You fought Vitaly Minikov, Mighty Mo, just to name a few. And then you had a little pit stop in the European circuit, KSW, where you fought Strongman Marius. I'm going to butcher the last name. That's why I have his name written down. Pujanovsky. And he's a Kyokushin fighter too. What was that like? It was basically Kyokushin versus Kyokushin in the pro European MMA circuit scene.
So we fought in London, actually. And there's a lot of Polish people who live in London, like a lot. And they packed out the stadium. And again, I was the underdog there. But I had a real feeling of maybe of all the fights I had, I said, this is a fight I got to win for combat sports athletes and martial artists. Because this guy's a strong man. Otherwise, it's like sending the message out, you can just take a whole bunch of gear and you can beat anyone. I thought he was, for someone who was a strong man beforehand and put obviously a lot of energy and time into that, when he changed over, I thought, hey, he's actually pretty good. But I thought there's a good chance he could fall for, a fairly simplistic game plan. And he did. It was the old, jab to the head, fake the takedown and throw the uppercut. I call it the double tap, the gangster's technique. Bang, bang. Tap, tap. And then jumped on top of him. And, we try to use all the things before the fight as well, in the press conference and stuff like that. But I felt that he wasn't. I felt that he was really scared. And some of my people were saying, man, he's walking around. He's looking really nervous. He was pacing up and down behind backstage for like hours before the fight. I thought that's not a good sign. People can be nervous and stuff, but pacing up and down for 3 hours or 2 hours before a fight just shows maybe you shouldn't be doing this. So, he looks intimidating, but, he looks intimidating, combat sports athletes. I tell this to people all the time. It's not a beauty contest. It's a fight. Look at Tyson Fury, right? It's a perfect example. It's not a beauty comp. It's a boxing fight. Sure, we always, it looks cool when you see someone who's ripped up and everything, but don't kid yourself. Just because someone's ripped up and everything doesn't make him a better fighter. It's part of it, even to the intimidation factor or whatever. But I think real fighters know, I don't give a fuck how many tattoos you got on your face, how much gear you've taken because you got a six-pack or you've got, a really super cool pair of shorts and you came in a cool truck and, you got a hot girlfriend. Because all that shit doesn't mean anything once you start to fight. It's like, you want to fight, I'm fucking going to hit you until you stop being able to hit me, and that's the end of the show. And if you don't like it, fuck you.
So true.
It's very true. That's a beautiful combat sports, right? Doesn't matter if you're black, doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're broke as shit, doesn't matter if you're Jewish, doesn't matter anything. No, when you step in the ring, it's just me versus you. And if I trained harder and I put more effort in and I knock you out, doesn't even matter if the judges don't like me. It's like, sucked in, bitch. I'm the fucking champ. And that's what I like about it. It's where you get to turn something shit or something that, drives you into being something positive. And, that's why I love combat sports, man. This is like so awesome. It means, if you are the underdog, if you are the nobody, you don't have to have, $20,000 a year to go to a really good football, soccer training school so you can make it to the Premier League or whatever the big league of football is. You don't have to have an expensive pair of pads and stuff to play like American or Canadian football. You don't even have to have anything. If you can get yourself into a gym, and there's places, in the poorest areas, there's gyms that you can go to. If you put in the hard work, they'll let you train for free.
It's very true.
And I think, Mark Hunt shows it. I show, there's zillions of people who showed it. It says they don't care. If you keep winning, especially if you keep knocking them out, like Mark Hunt was such a massive underdog when we went to the K1 finals. They were like, oh yeah, there's this, kind of short, fat Polynesian guy, ha. And then he's like knocked everyone the fuck out, and everyone else is like, ha. And that's what it's about. It's like when I joined the gym that I joined that he was in, it was full of it's an Australian Aboriginal and Polynesian gym. And you may have noticed that I am neither Aboriginal or Polynesian. So the warm welcoming I was expecting didn't happen. No, I wasn't expecting a warm welcome. It was like, are you lost? They're like, are you a cop? Are you like, and even the area that it's in at that time was, it was not really great for someone who looked like me. It's like, this is not the gym for you. Go and play football. You're a big white guy, get out of here, or you can't do it. You're a heavyweight fighter who's white. What are you, an idiot?
Super true.
It's like, it's it's the same old story from different people, with slightly different, sets of events and circumstances.
Super. Yeah, it's super true. Is there a particular fighter you like? I mean, like, I know, like, now you're retired. Is there a particular fighter you like watching today that whose style you like to watch in MMA?
To be honest, at the moment, it's a little bit bland. Like when the UFC was kind of, I feel like within the last couple of years, the UFC has kind of got watered down a bit. They don't have that kind of core group of badass fighters that are just murking each other. It's like, it doesn't matter if they're fighting for the title. It doesn't matter if they're the top two guys. Give one of 10 different people. And that was exciting. It was like K1, you're like, every fight was good. Anyone who was in the top 36, top 16, and they were fighting, it was a good fight. It was like pride, like every fight was good. And at the moment, I kind of feel it's a little bit like that. There's like only like a couple, is it, like, oh, this guy's making us all the money, so we'll put him on. And it's like, yeah, like, McGregor, yeah, I like seeing him fight and stuff because he's exciting. But everyone else is a little bit bland. Not massively. Sensei is cool, and I like to watch, the Australian fights, but I just don't feel that same energy as around. It seems like just watered down a bit. No disrespect to the fighters, they're like, it's more of the way the promotions are set up.
Makes sense. And my last question is, this is the last question I want to ask. You've done it all, now you really accomplished it, becoming a gym owner too, being good with your money and all your journey. And how has becoming what do you hope your impact is going to be on the future generations, whether it's children that just want to take martial arts for recreation, or the adults that say, or adolescents or adults that say, I do want to become a fighter. Peter, what can you teach me? What do you hope your impact to be on all different demographics?
Hopefully it's the same that I had from other fighters who came before me, to give someone the chance to become healthy and happy and confident, and know that, there's another avenue, You know, especially, you know, I can't talk for women, of course, not being one, but when I talk for men, it's like, you know, I was a young, angry kid, you know, but taking it out in a dojo and a gym and hitting a bag or training with someone who, you know, wants to fight made my life better. You know, if I did the same thing and I was in the street or, you know, beating my girl up or something like that, you know, this interview wouldn't be taking, and I'd be sitting down talking to some, you know, social worker in jail or something. So, you know, the impact, the thing I'd like to have is to say, you know what, I get it. You know, I get that you can be angry and frustrated and all the different things that young men go through, but the return on investment in combat sports and martial arts is 1,000,000 to 1. You get the right coach, and your life can go to from really shit to really good. And I guess it doesn't, you know, you don't have to become the champ, but, you know, if you understand that when you're pissed off and when you're angry, you know, you take it out of the gym and you know, you progress through those ranks, say, as we were saying before, in like in karate or jiu-jitsu or something like that, you know, you become more confident and you become a better fighter. The thing is, you become more confident, and people are more confident, less likely to become angry, you know, and behind anger is fear, right? So they're less likely to be angry because they're, you know, they're scared of being insulted or beat up or something like that. So really, they're just, you know, they're elevating everybody, right? The rising tide lifts all boats. So whereas as that young, angry kid becomes more confident, you know, the people around him are going to get better, as opposed to him staying more angry and, you know, telling the boss to fuck off and hitting his girlfriend and, you know, just destroying his life. You know, maybe he'll get a promotion. You know, maybe that relationship with that girl who can do something good can become even more positive. And, you know, so if anything, and someone hear my story and say, you know what, it can happen. You know, I'm that guy. You know, I literally, when I started, I pretty much had nothing. You know, I lived in what they call a youth refuge in Australia. I certainly didn't have any money. It certainly wasn't cool. And because I moved so much, I didn't have any long-term friends. I didn't have any education. I certainly didn't have a family. And now I have all of that. You know, I've been married 15 years this year to, you know, my awesome wife. I've got 2 beautiful children and a great bulldog. I have, you know, a big successful gym. I live in a beautiful house in a safe suburb right next to the beach. You know, I drive a cool truck. But, you know, above and beyond all that other kind of material stuff, I'm happy. I mean, my life is good. I'm like, and I know it, you know, because it was shit before. And I go, yep, that's cool. You know, you can look back and you can say, yep, you know, all the good things that you can get from combat sports and martial arts, I got, and it works. So I hope that's a legacy I can leave with you.
Awesome.
And everyone else.
Awesome, man. Really. And so once again, I just want to say personally, thank you so much for coming on the show. And where can people connect with you if they want to connect and, you know, take up classes or just, you know,
they want to connect, go to my Instagram. I think it's Peter the Chief or Peter Graham. It's not fine. And if you're kind of old and don't use Instagram, you can use Facebook. Or you can Google IMC Australia. We got 5 dojos. Mine's in Prospect, which I like the name of it. The actual name of the subject is Prospect as well. So you can become a prospect in Prospect. And we got, you know, karate, kickboxing, boxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA. Come down, have fun. Safe, awesome. Friendly. From 3 years old to 300.
Perfect. Well, once again, man, I really appreciate you coming on. This was great. Glad we got to do this finally. An extra special thanks to Sensei Nick Pettis, who really put in the encouragement, and even Sensei Pat Pinto, who I saw you were on his show. So those two, you know, as I said, we're raising the bar with the fight game.
Of course, those guys are great. Yeah, thanks. I had fun too.
All right. I'll make sure to put the episode up. So guys, make sure to subscribe, like, and share when the conversation's done. Grow the movement. Thanks once again, Peter.
Thanks. See you, everyone.